What maybe do you wish the former chief might have told you before you took this job, and maybe what you might tell the new chief at the table?
Well, we actually had a great conversation, right before Chief Isom left, and he said, trust your instincts. He said, it's your responsibility to make sure the department responds to crime, and trust your instincts, and I do that every day. My commanders tell me lots of things, but at the end of the day, I want to make sure we do the right things to keep the people in St. Louis safe.
What do people not know? What would you like people to know about your jobs and your officers' jobs on the street? What do you think the most unknown part of the job is to the general public?
Well, we actually try to be as open and transparent, but I think the public needs to know that every day our officers come to work with the best intentions to try and keep the community safe and to leave the place a little bit better than we found it in the morning. And I think we do that more days than not. You heard Professor Rosenfeld talk about some of the successes that the police department, the Metropolitan Police Department in St. Louis have had over the last couple of years. Crime is down since 2006 over 50%. That's because of the hard work of the men and women of the police department. You talked about the perception. Crime is down, and it's because of their hard work.
But we've got a lot of, maybe from the outside looking in now, I mean, we've got several shootings in the last few days. This is a social media world we live in. People are talking about this. People are upset. We got communities, neighborhoods in pain. What is it that's going on right now in our region, do you see?
Well, there are short trends in which you have crime problems within any community. But one thing I say is that most people suffer from recency bias, right? They see what's happening in the news every day in the 24-hour media cycle, and that's what they take away in terms of what's going on in crime. But there's a whole history of what's happened in the past, and it's undeniable when you look at the crime statistics that crime has been trending down for several years now. And if you look at it in comparison to the years where crime was up significantly, like 1993, there's just a dramatic decrease in crime across the board in all communities.
Why do you think that is, as a professor, as law enforcement leaders? Why do we see this?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Chief.
We look at a lot of different things, and some of it, I think, is counterintuitive at times. But, we talk about 1993, it's funny. My 1993 numbers mirror that of probably what St. Louis is. It was a bad year for us all across the board, especially in Part 1 crimes.
So what does that mean?
So that's the UCR Part 1. That's the homicides,
Got
the
it.
rapes, the assaults,
The
etc.
violent crimes.
So we take a look at our juvenile population, and they've decreased over since 1990 by about 7%. So there's a thought out there that our young people, ages perhaps 17 to 35, commit most of our crimes. We've seen that. We have a lot of violent offenders incarcerated now. Does that make a difference with us? And I think we talked about it, Chief Dotson did, and I know this was practiced when Chief Isom was in the city, but we do a much better job identifying crime trends and acting upon those crime trends immediately. And if you don't recognize them and act on them immediately, then you can't make a difference in those trends, because sometimes those trends, they're short-lived, but they have a dramatic effect on crime. And then we see these reported, and oftentimes they're reported and it's very salacious. So that impacts how safe people feel in their community. So I think those things are very good. I think the hotspot model is something that we're really on to right now.
I know hotspot, this is something you've been talking about. Can you just give us a up-to-date on what that is? I mean, people may not be quite familiar. The professor mentioned it, but.
Well, and to kind of what Chief Elmore said, really technology, hotspot policing is the wave of the future for law enforcement. It used to be anecdote drove our enforcement strategies. Now we have real-time data that shows us where the hotspots are, where the crimes are occurring, the times of day, days of the week, and we're able to put resources into those areas to address the crime. And hotspot policing is giving away to microspot policing, which is an even a smaller version, even block by block sometimes of where crimes are occurring. And then the natural offshoot from that is hot people. The people that we know that are responsible for the crimes, to target them and to arrest them and bring them in front of the courts.
That seems a little bit like something out of a movie. Where are we getting some pushback from people here? I mean, that might seem like some people are feeling targeted in that sense there.
Well, I mean, the reality is that the technology has allowed us to respond more rapidly to crime and crime trends, and so people should be reassured that police departments are using this technology to make them safer. Years ago, you'd have to take out pens and look at maps and put them up, and you could imagine how long that would take to map out the trends in a neighborhood. But now you could virtually do it within hours, looking at changes in trends and getting your officers out there on the street in those hot spots so you can affect crime.
Does all the city and the county, do you get the same attention then everywhere? I mean, if something happens down here in the Central West End, that gets a lot of attention and it gets perhaps a lot of response, maybe not so much in other areas, some people might say. What would you say to that, Chief?
Well, I think the attention comes from the media. We address all crime, whether it occurs in any part of the city, wherever it occurs, the same. That's really the reason for our redistricting, to put resources, the same number of resources in each area, each district that has the same number of calls for service, essentially, and the same amount of crime. So the media is the one that highlights the crime, not the police department, because we address it all the same.
Things are much easier in the county, though. No, it's a cake job you just got, I'm sure.
Right, but that's very true, and that's frustrating from time to time because Chief Dotson hit the nail on the head. We address all crime same, and we will find, for example, that oftentimes a victim who happens to be a young African American man, there's doesn't seem to be a hue and a cry, and it's not reported, and people don't see it. But yet something similar to that happens in a more affluent area, and it's a gigantic big deal. Well, for the police department, we don't draw a difference. We don't draw a distinction. The bottom line is we put our assets where they need to be based on the call volume, and we move forward from there with it. So that can be frustrating from time to time on that illusion that is given to us oftentimes, and really it's fed by the media on what they feel like that people want to see and want to digest.
We won't leave that hanging. We have someone to address that very issue later in the show. I won't try to speak for the media in general. I put it to the city chief, I'll put it to the county chief. What do you wish people knew about the challenges, I should say, that your officers are up against?
Well, you know, they're very busy. We don't have a problem on the St. Louis County Police Department, or any chief in the United States will tell you that money couldn't solve. But at the end of the day, we try to do a very good job with the tools that we have. So the police officers out there are doing the best job that they possibly can with the resources given to them. I feel like they have a lot of support from the community at times. But what I would like to tell people is that when we see these little vignettes that are shown to us through YouTube or different things like that of violent encounters between police and subjects out there, that's just one small moment in time. And at the end of the day, part of what we do in police work can be very violent at times, and it's not fun for anybody, but I think people get an incorrect impression of what we do by just not being able to see everything in its proper characterization.
Chief, what can you say wearing a suit that you couldn't say in a uniform that you'd like people to know about this profession?
Well, I mean, even from the outside, I've become even more impressed with the policing profession because you're able to see it as a citizen. And one thing that you see, every police officer comes into the organization wanting to help people. And I see that really every day now as a civilian, right? That I see the police out there working very hard to protect the community every day. And so that's become even more apparent now as a regular civilian now.
Thank you all for your time.